What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Sports here. I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I've been interested in making for a while now. There's been some Twitter conversations on it, and today a conversation sparked my interest again. Not too sure what I'm going to be naming this video yet, but it's going to be based around if I think the Leafs should be making a big move this summer or big moves this summer. After an impressive season and a first-round playoff exit to the Washington Capitals, which they played really good in, people are wondering if the Leafs should take that next step or maybe even take a giant step forward and go after some big names either via trade or free agency. Now here's the thing. If you would have asked me the same question a couple months ago, I probably would have said, no, I don't think the Leafs should really do anything big. But after thinking about it and seeing some conversations on blog posts, on TV, and even on Twitter, I've kind of changed my mind a little bit. Here's the thing, before I start anything here, I'm not saying the Leafs should rip apart the foundation that they've made and just, trade everything and, go for a Stanley Cup or bust. That's it. But there's something that Jeff Viet, I really don't want to mispronounce his name, but he's awesome. You guys probably know of him. Some people dislike him for some reason, but not sure about that. But he's been bringing up some good points, and it's something, he's not the only one that I've seen it from, but he's been bringing it up on Twitter, and I follow him on Twitter, so I see it more because he's, there's people arguing his points all the time on it, and what he's saying is making sense, but I don't think people really understand what he's saying. He's not saying rip everything apart like I was just saying. He's saying there's a unique window for the Maple Leafs, and I really want to touch on that in this video. The Leafs do not have to rip everything apart. I'm going to say that again. They do not have to trade everything. They could use their money smart. That could be by making smart trades, but that doesn't mean they're going to trade all these players. It's not a Nylander, Marner, Matthews trade. Like, none of that stuff's going to happen. They're not going to get rid of all their youth. They're not going to trade the farm. This is just an idea. This is just a thought. And the thing is, you should probably read up on this, or at least listen to what I or anybody else has to say about this, because I think it's actually a fair point to make. Now, I'm going to post a picture on this video about what sparked this again. This is from, again, Jeff's Twitter account. He posted this, and that's brave of him, of a bunch of line combinations and Leaf players, all under the cap. Apparently, from what website he was using, everything fits under the cap. Everything should be good. There's a bit of an overage because of the money that they have to play for bonuses, I believe. But there's a lot of fresh names in there, a lot of them that you may not agree with. But if you read his Twitter, he said it's kind of like a pipe dream scenario, which means it's probably not going to happen. But he's trying to make a point with this. He's not saying they're going to get Kovalchuk and Thornton and all these other guys. It's about what the Leafs can do, and he's trying to show you what's possible with this team. Now, we all know that Leaf fans all over have been saying, oh, but we have to pay Nylander, we have to pay Marner, we have to pay Matthews. You're right, and I agree with you, we do. And you know what? I was one of those people. I said, don't spend any money, whatever, don't go after all these people. But then I looked at it this way. If you wait to sign these guys, you might not be able to get the same type of superstar help that you can get right now. Right now, you're paying Nylander a good contract on his entry-level contract, Marner an entry-level contract, and Matthews on his ELC as well. Next year, or next summer, you're going to have to pay Nylander. The summer after that, you're going to have to pay Marner and Matthews. That gives you 2 or 3 years of a lot of cap space. Now, depending on if the cap goes up and depending on who gets re-signed for how much money, we have to re-sign Brown and Hyman, and, there's a possibility the Leafs could keep Boyle and maybe McElhinney as well. You have to look at how much money the Leafs could possibly have to spend in free agency. They could, I believe a rough number, an estimate would be around 15 to 20 million. I'm thinking more towards the 15 million side, but that's a good chunk of change. They also, I believe, could increase that cap number because of Horton and Lupul and such. Correct me if I'm wrong. But regardless, even if it's 15 million, that's a good chunk of change. The Leafs have a good core with a good supporting cast with good contracts. So obviously you have guys like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, of course, we know. Hyman and Brown are probably going to get contracts, and they're not going to be that expensive. You know, guys coming up like Kapanen, Soshnikov in and out. You know, they've got Carrick, who's on a cheap deal. There's a lot of... The core is really put together. If I forgot somebody, don't hate me. But the core is relatively cheap, and there's a lot of good players in that core, of course. Then the supporting cast, and Van Riemsdyk this year not getting paid that much. People will hate on the Zaitsev contract, but he's locked up. Gardner's locked up till 2019. You've got Bozak on a decent deal that can be traded. You know, the list goes on. Riley, Kadri, everybody's locked up. And there's still that money left over, which is what a lot of teams can't say. The Leafs literally have like 90% of their core locked up, and you know, their core for right now, obviously, and they can add to that. They can add to it on defense, and they can add to it up front without having to worry about those contracts till a couple years. So why wait to compete and get more players in, you know, the coming years after you sign your big three? Then you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait until those guys are locked up. So why don't you spend some money now and get some players that can play with them right now and come into this team and be effective for 2 or 3 years? You'll still have enough money to sign guys, because you have to remember, if the Leafs are committed to bringing in some big contracts, a possibility of a guy like Bozak, he could be gone, and then his money's off the cap as well. So the Leafs should really think about grabbing some players, whether in free agency or via trade. Again, not giving up the farm for a player, but they should at least explore it. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Kevin Shattenkirk, and that's one of the people on Jeff's photo that he posted. But can Shattenkirk bring an offensive side and maybe a bit of a comeback on the defensive side and bring something to the Leafs? It's possible. Could you get something out of another defenseman that, you know, maybe doesn't have the same kind of offensive touch but is good defensively? It's possible. I'm not saying go after Alzner, Shattenkirk, whatever, but would you really hate if the Leafs got Shattenkirk and then he produced offensively and gave you what you relatively need on the defensive side? Or what about trading for a guy like Chris Tanev, bringing him in and being a lockdown defender? Yeah, you know, it's going to cost you a little bit, but at the same time, you have to be effective when you have cap space. When you have the room to get these guys, it's possible. Now, the links to Ilya Kovalchuk there, I'm not the biggest fan of Kovalchuk, but it is possible if you bring in a guy like Kovalchuk. It doesn't have to be him, but you will have the space for a guy like that. And if that means you trade JVR, it's possible, but you could also keep JVR. There is a bunch of different scenarios that can go on, and in no way in this video am I saying all of this is going to happen, or if the Leafs are even thinking that way. But the thing is, you got to think the Leafs know that they have this space, of course. And you have to think they've been thinking a little bit about what Jeff is saying and what a lot of other people are saying as well. It's not rushing a rebuild. It's not accelerating everything and forgetting the whole plan. This is part of the plan. The Leafs don't have to tell everybody what they're doing. And I keep having to say it because I know the first person that's going to hate on this is going to say that they're rushing a rebuild. It's not a rush. And for all we know, they're not going to do anything I said in this or anything Jeff said or anybody said. I wish I could find these articles. I'll link them to you guys. There's been a couple really good articles regarding this, and I think Myrtle did one as well. But you have to think about it. It's possible the Leafs could do something like this, and they still could sign Marner. They still can sign Nylander. They can still sign Matthews. It's all possible. Hell, the Leafs could get guys that their contracts are up once those guys come around. If you have a chance to maximize a chance at the Stanley Cup or even going really deep into the playoffs by next year, and you don't have to, kill the bank and kill your prospect pool, do it. There is a chance the Leafs could go out and sign somebody really good or trade for somebody really good, and it won't affect the big three. So let me know what you guys think. Again, this isn't about an accelerated rebuild. Please go follow Jeff. I'm sure if a lot of you guys are watching me, you probably already know of him. So thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, go check out some other YouTubers. Again, thank you guys, and see you later.